Hi there, Joshua here. Right, so today we're going to be doing fractions and percentages, changing fractions into percentages. And I was just thinking, if you give someone a test on percentages, fractions and numbers, and they get a really low score because they don't understand any of it, how are you meant to give them their result? Right, you got 2%. Okay? Huh? That's a percentage and you don't understand percentages? Right, okay, 2%, right, you got 2 out of 100, alright? Huh? That's a fraction and you don't understand fractions? Duh, what am I going to do? Duh. Right, you got 2, okay, you got 2. You got 2 right and 98 wrong, okay? Huh? They're numbers and you don't understand numbers? Right, do you understand letters? Because you got an F, alright? I'm giving you an F. Huh? What do you mean you haven't done the alphabet? Right, fractions to percentages, that's what I'm going to do today. So today I'm going to show you how to change any fraction into a percentage. I'm going to do a couple of different methods, with and without a calculator. But first I'm just going to explain what percentages are. So a percentage is basically just a fraction, but it's a fraction out of 100. So, for example, 1% just means 1 out of 100, or 1/100th. That's what 1% means. And as a decimal, some of you may know what that is as a decimal. It's just 0.01. 0.01 as a decimal. Remember, you've got the units column here, then the tenths column after a decimal point, and then the hundredths column here. So 1/100th, to write that as a decimal, you just need to put a 1 in the hundredths column. So that's what it is as a decimal. Now I'm going to shade in 1% of this grid. There are 100 squares altogether, because it's a 10 by 10 grid. So 1% just means 1 out of 100, so I just need to shade in 1 of the squares, because there are 100 of them. So this is 1% of the grid, just 1 square out of 100. Right, let's do 3% now. Let's do 3% as a decimal and a fraction. So what's 3% as a fraction? Well, a percentage is just a fraction out of 100, so 3% is just means 3 out of 100. So 3 out of 100, or 3/100ths. And to write that as a decimal, this time I need to put a 3 in the hundredths column. So it's going to be 0.03. That's how to write 3/100ths as a decimal. And to shade in 3% of the grid, which just means 3 out of 100, I just have to shade in 3 squares, because there are 100 squares altogether. So this is 2%, and this is 3% of the grid. The whole grid, by the way, would be 100%. 100% just means 100 out of 100, which is just the whole thing. But this is 3%. Now what about 10%? Let's do 10% as a fraction and a decimal. So 10% as a fraction, a percentage is just a fraction out of 100. So 10% is just 10 out of 100. So 10 out of 100, or 10/100ths. You can actually simplify this fraction because the numerator and denominator are both divisible by 10. 10 divided by 10 is 1, and 100 divided by 10 is 10. So this fraction simplifies to 1/10. And to write 1/10 as a decimal, you just put a 1 in the tenths column this time. So it's just 0.1. You could put a 0 after that if you like. You can put as many zeros as you want after that, actually. It doesn't change the value of the number. But the quickest way to write 1/10 as a decimal is just 0.1. And to shade in 10% of the grid, which is just 10 out of 100, I just need to shade in 10 of the squares. So I'll just shade in 10 squares. Well, I'll shade in this column. This is 10 squares. Like that. And you can see that 10% is the same as 1/10 because I've shaded in 1 column out of the 10 columns of the grid. So that's 10%. Let's just do one more. Let's do 27% as a fraction and a decimal. So 27%. Well, as a fraction, it's 27 out of 100. That's what 27% means. 27/100ths. Some of you might know already what that is as a decimal. Some of you might be able to guess what that is as a decimal, probably. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the shading first, and that will help me explain what it is as a decimal. So to shade 27%, 27 out of 100, I just need to shade in 27 squares. So 27 of the 100 squares, that's 10. So another column would be 20%. And then I need to do an extra 7 squares, an extra 7%. So that's 27%. And notice that it's 2 full columns and 7 extra squares. Each column is 1/10 of the grid and each square is 1/100th. So altogether it's 2/10 and 7/100ths. So to write this as a decimal, I need to put a 2 in the 10ths column and a 7 in the 100ths column. So it's 0.27 as a decimal. So 27%, 27/100ths as a decimal is 0.27. Right, let's change some fractions into percentages now. So imagine you got 41 out of 50 in a test, 41 out of 50, and you wanted to know your percentage score. How could we change that into a percentage? Well, if you remember, a percentage is just a fraction out of 100. So if we can change this fraction to a fraction out of 100, then we've basically done it. Now 50 does go into 100, so using equivalent fractions we can change this into a fraction out of 100. 50 times 2 is 100. So to get an equivalent fraction to this one, you've got to do the same thing to the numerator. You've got to multiply that by 2. And you get 84. Not 84, 82. 41 times 2 is 82. So 41 out of 50 is the same as 82 out of 100. They're equivalent fractions. And of course, 82 over 100 is just 82%. So this would be your percentage score, 82%. Let's do a few more. So let's say you got 21 out of 25 in a test. Let's change that into a percentage. Again, we can get it out of 100 because 25 goes into 100. Goes into 100 4 times. So 25 times 4 is 100. And to get an equivalent fraction, we've got to do the same to the numerator. So we've got to multiply that by 4 as well. And 21 times 4 is 84. So 21 over 25 is the same as 84 over 100, which is 84%. So this is 84%. Let's do a few more. Let's say you got, let's say 11 over 20. Let's say you wanted to change that fraction into a percentage. Can we change that to a fraction out of 100? Yes, we can, because 20 goes into 100. It goes into 100 5 times. So to get an equivalent fraction out of 100, you need to multiply 20 by 5. Of course, you've got to do the same thing to the numerator to get an equivalent fraction to this one. So 11 times 5 is 55. 55. So 55 over 100 is just 55%. Let's just do a couple more. Let's do 164 over 200. Let's change this fraction into a percentage. Well, can we get it to a fraction out of 100? Again, yes we can. 200 halved is 100. So we can divide the top and the bottom by 2. 200 divided by 2 is 100. And of course you've got to do the same to the numerator to get an equivalent fraction. 164 divided by 2 is 82. So dividing top and bottom by 2, you get 82 over 100, which again is 82%. 82%. Let's just do one more. 21 over 30. Right, let's change that into a percentage. Right, at first it looks like you can't use the same method because 30 doesn't go into 100. But if you simplify this fraction first, and it can be simplified, if you simplify it, then you can get it out of 100. So we can simplify this fraction because both numbers are divisible by 3. So both numbers are divisible by 3. 21 divided by 3 is 7. And 30 divided by 3 is 10. So 21 over 30 is the same as 7 over 10. And some of you might know what that is as a percentage already, but let's get it out of 100. So 7 over 10. To get it out of 100, we need to multiply top and bottom by 10, because 10 times 10 is 100. So we need to do 7 times 10 as well. which is 70. So it's 70 over 100, which is just 70%. So 21 over 30 is the same as 70%. Right, I'm now going to show you a more general method for changing any fraction into a percentage using the calculator. Right, let's say you get 33 out of 40 in a test, and you want to know your percentage score, so you want to change that into a percentage. You can't really use the last method here, because you can't change that easily into a fraction out of 100, because 40 doesn't go into 100, and also you can't simplify this fraction. But there is a sort of more general method for changing any fraction into a percentage. All you do is you just multiply the fraction by 100, and whatever number you get, that's the percentage. So all you need to do here is just multiply this fraction, 33 over 40, just multiply the whole thing by 100. And you can do that on your calculator. To enter the fraction on your calculator, there may be a fraction button, and you can just enter it like that. Or if you don't have that button, you can just do 33 divided by 40. That's another way of entering it on the calculator. 33 divided by 40 is the same as 33 over 40, really. And then, of course, you just multiply by 100. And whatever number you get, whatever number this is, it's that percentage. So the number you should get on the calculator is 82.5. So 33 over 40 as a percentage is 82.5%. Right, let's do a couple more. So let's say you wanted to change 11/16 into a percentage, 11 over 16. Again, you can't easily get that, change it to a fraction out of 100, because 16 doesn't go into 100. But you can always use this method. You just multiply the fraction by 100. So you just do 11 over 16 times 100. And whatever answer you get, whatever number you get, it's that percentage. So you can do that on your calculator. You don't have to type in the brackets. I'm just writing brackets to separate the calculation from the percentage sign. You just do 11 over 16 times 100, and you should get the number 68.75. So the answer is 68.75%. Right, let's just do one more. Let's change 23 over 30 into a percentage. Again, 30 doesn't go into 100, so let's use this method. You just multiply the whole fraction by 100, so 23 over 30 times 100. And again, whatever number you get on your calculator, it'll be that percentage. So if you do 23 over 30 times 100, you should get, that's a recurring decimal, you should get 76.6 recurring, 666. That's your percentage. So normally in this situation we'd round the decimal. Let's round it to one decimal place. So to one decimal place it's 76.7%. So 23 over 30 to one decimal place is 76.7%. Right, so let's finish off with a quick worded question. So imagine there are 31 red socks and 49 green socks in a sock drawer, and you want to know, let's say we want to know what percentage of the socks are red. What percentage of all the socks are red? So we need to find how many socks there are altogether. Well, 31 red, 49 green, 31 plus 49 is 80. So there are 80 socks altogether. So it's 31 red socks out of 80 socks in total. So let's write that as a fraction first. It's always good to write it as a fraction before we change it to a percentage. So the fraction that are red is 31 out of 80. Now we've got to change it to a percentage. You can't really change this to 100, to a fraction out of 100 very easily, because 80 doesn't go into 100 and the fraction can't be simplified. So let's use that quick method, the calculator method of just multiplying the fraction by 100. So on the calculator, to change it to a percentage, you can just take the fraction and just multiply it by 100. And then whatever number you get here, it's that percentage. So if you do 31 over 80 times 100 on your calculator, you should get 38.75. So 38.75% is the answer. Now some of you might be wondering, can you do these sorts of questions without a calculator? Can you change a fraction to a percentage like this without a calculator? And yes, you can. You can do this sort of calculation without a calculator. I would treat it as a fraction multiplication if I didn't have a calculator. I'd write 100 as 100 over 1. Any whole number can be changed to a fraction like that, just by writing it as a fraction over 1. And then you could do a fraction multiplication to get this number. When you multiply fractions, you can cancel diagonally. So we can do that here because 180 are both divisible by 20, so we can divide them both by 20. That'll make it a bit easier to multiply the fractions. So 80 divided by 20 is 4, and 100 divided by 20 is 5. So to do this multiplication, we'd have to do, let's write down what we've got. We've got 31 over 4 times 5 over 1. 4 times 1 is 4. And to get the numerator here, we do 31 times 5. You could do that at the side, or you might be able to do that mentally. 30 times 5 is 150, so 31 times 5 is 155. So it's that percent. But if you want that as a number, you still have to do 155 divided by 4. So we could do that at the side. So we do 155. I'm just going to put some zeros after a point because I know there's going to be a remainder. So I do 4s into 1, it doesn't go, so carry the 1. 4s into 15 it goes in 3 times, remainder 3. 4s into 35 is 8, remainder 3. And then 4s into 30 is 7, remainder 2. And 4s into 20 is 5. So you get the same answer, 38.75. So that's how I do it without a calculator. That's the end of the lesson. So I've shown you 2 different methods for changing fractions into percentages. Don't forget method 1, by the way, which was getting the fraction out of 100. That is a very quick method if you can do it. So let's say you've got, well, I'll write down 2 fractions. Let's say we want to know what these fractions are as percentages. So can we change any of these fractions to fractions out of 100? Well, the top one definitely, because 50 goes into 100. We can just double the top and the bottom to get it to a fraction out of 100. So this was the first method I showed you, and you get 46 over 100, which is 46%. So always try and do this method if you can, it's the quickest method. You can't really do it here very easily because 8 doesn't go into 100, but I showed you a second method that works for any fraction, and that's just to multiply the fraction by 100. So you can multiply this fraction by 100 to change it into a percentage. You just take the whole fraction and multiply it by 100. Whatever answer you get, it's that percent. It's that percentage. And you can do this on the calculator, 5 over 8 times 100. You could also do it without a calculator, of course. You could do it as a sort of fraction multiplication. The answer you get either way for this one is 62.5, so it's 62.5%. So they're the 2 different methods I showed you. Right, I'm going to put some questions now at the end of this video for anyone who wants to practice what we did today. As I always say, the best way to improve at maths is to watch my videos, obviously, and try practice questions as well. I'm going to put the answers after that. So you can pause the video, have a go at the questions, and then look at the answers in that order. Right, here are the questions. Bye.